The cockpit radio went dead. Both pilots were down. Fire spreading fast. 289 passengers screaming as the plane dropped toward the ocean. Then passenger 14A stood up, walked through toxic smoke, and said 5 words that changed everything: ex-Navy SEAL, call sign Viper. The woman they'd erased from history was their only hope for survival. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Her name is Alexis Cross. She is 38 years old, sitting in seat 14A on United Flight 927, flying from New York JFK to London Heathrow. It is a Boeing 777-300ER carrying 289 passengers and crew. She sits in an aisle seat in economy class, wearing dark jeans and a plain gray hoodie. Her dark blonde hair is pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wears almost no makeup. She looks ordinary, forgettable, exactly like she wants to look. On her lap sits a paperback spy thriller, open to page 47. But she is not really reading. She is watching. Always watching. Her eyes move constantly, taking in everything around her. She counts the rows to the nearest emergency exit. She observes which passengers look strong, which look capable, which would panic in a crisis. These are old habits, habits she cannot break even after 3 years of trying. The businessman in seat 14B is already drunk. He is on his 3rd scotch, and the flight attendants have stopped serving him. He smells like expensive cologne and cheap decisions. The teenager in seat 14C has noise-canceling headphones clamped over his ears, lost in his phone, oblivious to the world. Neither of them notices Alexis. She prefers it that way. Nobody on this flight knows who she really is. Nobody knows that 3 years ago, Alexis Cross was Commander Alexis Viper Cross, the first female Navy SEAL in United States history. The journey to becoming a SEAL had been brutal beyond imagination. She joined the Navy at 22, fresh out of college with a degree in engineering and a burning desire to prove herself. Her recruiter had laughed when she said she wanted to be a SEAL. "Women can't be SEALs," he told her. "The training will break you in the first week." She proved him wrong. BUD/S training, the basic underwater demolition/SEAL course, is designed to break people. 6 months of the most intense physical and mental challenges the military can devise. Out of her class of 147 candidates, only 18 graduated. Alexis was one of them. She completed Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous training with a maximum of 4 hours of sleep total, while hiding a broken rib she suffered on day 2. She knew that if she reported the injury, she would be dropped from training and would have to start over months later. So she taped her ribs herself, swallowed the pain, and kept going through freezing ocean swims, obstacle courses, and endless physical evolutions that made grown men cry. When she finally earned her SEAL Trident, the gold insignia that marks a warrior as part of the most elite fighting force in the world, she became an instant legend. The first female SEAL. The woman who did the impossible. For 12 years, she ran classified operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. She operated in places that do not officially exist in any service record. She saved hostages, eliminated high-value targets, and gathered intelligence that prevented attacks and saved countless lives. She earned the call sign Viper after a hostage rescue mission in Somalia when 3 insurgents ambushed her team. She killed all 3 with 3 headshots in 4 seconds, moving so fast that her team leader said she struck like a snake. From that day forward, she was Viper. The name became legendary in special operations circles. But legends can fall. Until she told the truth. 3 years ago, during a routine SEAL training exercise, her best friend, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, died in a fast rope accident from a helicopter. The official investigation was swift and simple. The report blamed Sarah herself. Operator error, it said. Failed to properly secure harness. Fell 80 feet. Death instantaneous. But Alexis knew the truth. She had been on that helicopter. She had seen the equipment. She had reviewed the maintenance logs afterward, the real ones, not the sanitized versions they showed the investigation board. The helicopter had mechanical problems. The fast rope attachment point had stress fractures that maintenance crews knew about but ignored. The aircraft should have been grounded for repairs, but fixing it would have delayed deployment schedules. Someone in the contractor company, North Star Defense, had falsified the inspection records. Someone had signed off on equipment they knew was dangerous. And Sarah Mitchell had paid the price with her life. Sarah had been more than just a friend. She had been Alexis's swim buddy during BUD/S training, the person who kept her going during Hell Week when every muscle screamed and her mind begged her to quit. Sarah had been the first person to call her Viper and make it stick. They had run missions together in 3 different countries. Sarah had saved Alexis's life in Kandahar when an IED nearly killed her. They were sisters in every way that mattered except blood. Alexis wrote a report. A real report. She documented everything. She submitted evidence, photographs, testimonies from crew members who were afraid to speak up. She demanded accountability. She demanded that someone answer for Sarah's death. Instead, the Navy destroyed her. The brass did not want a scandal. They did not want questions about contractor oversight. They did not want headlines about corners being cut to save money. So they buried Alexis's report in classified files where nobody would ever see it. They transferred her from her team to a desk job at a logistics command. They started leaking rumors to other SEALs. Viper's losing it, they whispered. She can't handle Sarah's death. She's making wild accusations. She's becoming unstable. The whisper campaign was systematic and brutal. Officers she had served with for years suddenly avoided her in the hallways. Her phone stopped ringing with mission briefings. She was excluded from training exercises. Her evaluations, which had always been outstanding, suddenly became merely adequate. Lacks team focus, one report said. Demonstrates difficulty accepting adverse outcomes, said another. When Alexis refused to back down, refused to let Sarah's death be forgotten, they gave her a choice. Accept a medical discharge for PTSD and paranoid delusions, or face a court-martial for conduct unbecoming an officer, and insubordination. She chose the discharge. She refused to give them the satisfaction of a trial where they could parade psychiatrists who would testify that her grief had made her unstable. But they made sure it was dishonorable. They stripped her medals, including the Bronze Star she earned in Syria and the Purple Heart from Kandahar. They erased her from the SEAL community. They retired her call sign in shame, as if she had betrayed everything it stood for. The day she left Naval Base Coronado for the last time, her former teammates watched from a distance but none of them approached her. The brotherhood she had fought so hard to join had turned its back on her completely. Commander Alexis Viper Cross became just Alexis Cross, unemployed, blacklisted, invisible. For 3 years, she has lived in a small apartment in Queens. The apartment is sparse, functional, nothing like the home she once imagined building. She works as a private security consultant, the only job her skill set qualifies her for that does not require references from the Navy. Most of her clients are corporations that need someone to assess threats to their executives traveling to dangerous regions. It is boring work that pays barely enough. She makes enough to pay rent and send money to her aging mother in London, who still does not fully understand what happened to her daughter's career. Alexis told her mother there was a reorganization and she decided to pursue other opportunities. It was easier than explaining betrayal. She flies commercial a few times a year to visit her mother. She keeps her head down. She does not talk about the Navy. She does not talk about Sarah. She does not talk about what she lost. She is just a woman on a plane. Except Alexis Cross cannot turn off 12 years of SEAL training. Even now, at 34,000 feet over the North Atlantic Ocean, she is scanning for threats, assessing risks, preparing for emergencies that probably will not happen. But tonight, at 34,000 feet, 900 miles from the nearest land, that emergency is about to become very real. The first sign is a smell. It is faint at first, barely noticeable under the normal airplane smells of recycled air and stale coffee. But Alexis's head snaps up immediately because she recognizes it. It is acrid, chemical, wrong. It is the smell of burning lithium. Lithium battery fire. Her training kicks in instantly. Lithium fires burn hotter than normal fires. They produce toxic gases. They spread incredibly fast. And they are extremely dangerous on aircraft because water makes them worse, and standard fire extinguishers are often ineffective. She looks around. Most passengers do not notice yet. The drunk businessman is passed out, snoring softly. The teenager is still nodding his head to music. But Alexis is already unbuckling her seatbelt, already shifting forward in her seat, already calculating distances and options. The smell is coming from the front of the aircraft. From the cockpit. Then the screaming starts. The cockpit door bursts open and thick black smoke billows into the first-class cabin like a living thing. A flight attendant stumbles backward, coughing violently, her face twisted in panic. She is shouting, but Alexis cannot hear the words over the sudden eruption of noise as passengers see the smoke and begin to scream. Fire, the flight attendant finally shrieks loud enough to be heard. Fire in the cockpit. Chaos explodes through the cabin. Passengers leap from their seats. Overhead bins pop open as people grab for bags they do not need. Children cry. Adults shout questions nobody can answer. The oxygen masks drop from the ceiling with a loud thunk, yellow plastic dangling, and half the passengers stare at them without understanding what to do. Through the smoke, through the screaming, Alexis hears a voice from the cockpit. It is raw with agony, barely human. Captain's down. Fire everywhere. Can't see. Can't. Then choking. Gagging. Silence. The aircraft lurches hard to the left. People slam against their armrests. Drinks spill. The autopilot is fighting to maintain control, but something is wrong with the instruments. The plane's nose drops slightly, then rises, then drops again. Nobody is flying. Nobody is in control. 289 people. No pilots. Fire spreading through the cockpit. 34,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean with no land for 900 miles in any direction. A large man 3 rows ahead, military bearing, close-cropped hair, lunges out of his seat and runs toward the cockpit. He gets maybe 3 steps into the smoke before he collapses, overcome by toxic fumes. He hits the floor hard and does not move. 2 flight attendants grab fire extinguishers from the wall mounts and rush forward. They disappear into the smoke. 5 seconds later they stumble back, coughing so hard they cannot stand. The smoke is too thick. They cannot even see where the fire is, let alone fight it. Alexis makes her calculation in less than 2 seconds. The fire is lithium-based, which means standard extinguishers will not work effectively. The toxic smoke means everyone in the front section has maybe minutes before they pass out from the fumes. The fire is near the avionics systems and possibly near fuel lines. If it reaches the fuel, the aircraft will explode. Everyone will die. Nobody on this plane knows how to fight this kind of fire. Except me. She moves. Alexis does not run. Navy SEALs do not run into chaos. They move with controlled aggression, with purpose, with absolute focus. She grabs 3 bottles of water from the hands of panicking passengers nearby. She tears off her gray hoodie and soaks it in the water, then wraps it around her face like a mask, covering her nose and mouth. She drops low, almost to the floor, because heat and smoke rise and breathable air stays near the ground. Everyone get back, she shouts, and her voice cuts through the chaos like a knife. It is her command voice, the voice she used to lead SEAL teams in combat, the voice that makes people obey without thinking. Seal the cabin. Close the curtains. Put your oxygen masks on now. The flight attendants stare at her. Who is this woman? Who does she think she is? Do it now. Alexis snaps, and they move. She crawls forward into the smoke. It is like crawling into hell. The heat hits her immediately, even low to the ground. The smoke is so thick she cannot see her own hands. She is navigating by memory, by feel, by training she has not used in 3 years but that is burned into her muscle memory forever. The cockpit is 5 feet ahead. 3 feet. 1 foot. She reaches out and her hand touches the cockpit door frame. She pulls herself through and the scene inside is worse than she imagined. The cockpit is a war zone. Smoke fills every inch of space. The heat is intense enough that she can feel her skin starting to burn even through the wet hoodie. Emergency lights flicker red and amber, casting hellish shadows through the haze. The captain is slumped forward over the controls, not moving. Blood runs from a gash on his forehead where he hit the instrument panel. Alexis cannot tell if he is dead or unconscious, but it does not matter right now. The first officer is collapsed on the floor between the seats, his uniform burned, his skin blistered and red, gasping weakly for air that is not there. His hands are clutching at his throat, his eyes wide with panic and pain. And the fire. It is coming from the electrical panel behind the captain's seat. A lithium battery in the emergency equipment bag has exploded, and flames are eating through wiring and insulation, spreading toward the main avionics bay. Alexis can see melted plastic dripping from overhead panels. She can see circuit boards glowing red-hot. She can see the fire crawling along cable runs toward the bulkhead that separates the cockpit from the fuel tanks. The smell is overwhelming, a toxic cocktail of burning plastic, electrical components, and lithium smoke that makes her eyes water and her throat constrict even through her makeshift mask. If that fire reaches the avionics, they lose all flight controls. The aircraft becomes unflyable. If it reaches the fuel lines in the next bulkhead, they explode. Everyone dies. Standard fire extinguisher will not work on lithium. Water will make it worse, causing the lithium to react even more violently. She needs to smother it, to cut off its oxygen supply completely. Alexis acts on pure training, using techniques she learned in SEAL demolition school for fighting chemical fires in confined spaces, the kind of fires that happen when explosive devices malfunction in tight quarters where conventional firefighting is impossible. She rips the emergency oxygen supply covers off the cockpit walls. They are made of fire-resistant fabric, designed to withstand extreme heat. She grabs the first officer's jacket, which is made of flame-retardant material required for flight crew. She uses her body weight to pin the fabric over the flames, smothering them, starving them of oxygen. The heat is incredible. Even through the wet fabric of her hoodie wrapped around her hands, she can feel her skin blistering. The pain is sharp and immediate, like pressing her palms onto a hot stove. But she does not stop. She cannot stop. 289 lives depend on the next 30 seconds. She presses down harder, ignoring the pain screaming up her arms. The fire fights back, trying to find oxygen around the edges of the fabric. She adjusts her position, sealing the edges, cutting off every possible air source. Smoke billows up around her face and she holds her breath, counting seconds in her head the way she learned during underwater demolition training. 15 seconds. The flames weaken. 20 seconds. The orange glow dims. 25 seconds. The heat begins to subside. 30 seconds of controlled fury. 30 seconds of pushing burning fabric down with her bare hands while the skin blisters and blood seeps through her makeshift gloves. 30 seconds of holding position while every instinct screams at her to pull away from the pain. Then, finally, silence. The fire is out. But Alexis knows her job is not done. She quickly checks for hot spots, places where the fire might reignite. She finds 2 smoldering areas and smothers them with additional fabric. Only when she is absolutely certain the fire is completely extinguished does she allow herself to move. Alexis does not celebrate. She does not even pause to assess her injuries. She grabs the first officer under his arms and drags him backward out of the cockpit into the cabin, where flight attendants take him from her. He is alive. Critical condition, severe burns covering his hands and face, probably smoke inhalation damage to his lungs, but alive. If they can get him to a hospital within the next few hours, he has a chance. She turns back to the cockpit. The captain is still slumped over the controls. She checks his pulse, pressing her burned fingers against his neck despite the pain. Nothing. His neck is broken. When he collapsed forward during the fire, his head hit the instrument panel with enough force to snap his spine. He was probably dead within seconds, before the first officer even started screaming. At least his death was quick. Alexis says a silent prayer for a man she never knew, then pulls his body away from the controls and slides into the captain's seat. The leather is hot from the fire, but she ignores the discomfort. Her hands, blistered and bleeding, find the controls like muscle memory. The yoke feels familiar despite the years away from flying. She flew small aircraft during SEAL training, learned basic piloting skills for emergencies and extraction scenarios. She has never flown anything this big, anything this complex, but the principles are the same. Yoke controls pitch and roll. Throttles control power. Rudder pedals control yaw. Trim adjusts for stable flight. She scans the instruments through the lingering smoke haze, cataloging the damage and assessing what she has to work with. Autopilot failing. The computer is trying to hold altitude, but with fire damage to the sensors and electrical systems, it is fighting a losing battle. The artificial horizon shows the aircraft slowly rolling right. Altitude is dropping. 200 feet per minute. Not fast, but steady and relentless. Communications are dead. The fire destroyed the primary radio panel completely. Melted wiring hangs from the overhead panel like dead vines. No way to call for help through normal channels. No GPS. The navigation system is offline, probably damaged by the fire or the electrical surge when the battery exploded. The screens that should show their position and flight path are dark. No transponder. The device that tells air traffic control where they are and who they are is not functioning. Nobody on the ground knows where they are or that they are in trouble. They are invisible to the world. They are 900 miles from the nearest land, flying blind over the North Atlantic Ocean. Nobody knows they need help. And Alexis Cross, a woman the Navy said was unfit to serve, is the only one who can fly them to safety. She takes a deep breath, ignoring the pain in her hands, and focuses on the immediate priorities. First, stabilize the aircraft. She takes manual control, disengaging the failing autopilot, and uses the yoke and rudder to level the wings and arrest the descent. The 777 responds smoothly to her inputs. It is a well-designed aircraft, stable and forgiving even in manual flight. Second, establish communications. If the primary radio is dead, there might be a backup. She keys the backup emergency radio, a military frequency she knows from her SEAL days, a frequency that military aircraft monitor constantly for distress calls. It is 243.0 MHz, the International Military Emergency Frequency, sometimes called GARD. She speaks words she never thought she would say again, words that feel both foreign and familiar on her tongue. This is Viper. Ex-Navy SEAL, taking command of civilian aircraft. Fire suppressed. Both pilots down. I have control. Requesting immediate military assistance. There is no response. Just static. She tries again, adjusting the frequency slightly in case the radio is not perfectly tuned. Any station, this is Viper on guard frequency. United Flight 927, Boeing 777, both pilots incapacitated, requesting emergency assistance. How copy? Still nothing but static. For a moment, doubt creeps in. What if the backup radio is damaged too? What if nobody is listening? What if she is truly alone up here with 289 souls depending on her and no way to get help? Then a voice crackles through the static, distant but clear. Station calling on guard, say again your call sign and situation. Alexis feels relief wash over her, but she keeps her voice calm and professional. This is Commander Alexis Cross, call sign Viper, United States Navy SEALs. I am currently in control of United Flight 927, Boeing 777-300ER, approximately 900 miles east of New York. Both pilots down due to cockpit fire. Fire now suppressed. 289 souls on board. Require immediate assistance and emergency vectors to nearest suitable airport. There is a pause. She can imagine the confusion on the other end. A civilian airliner calling on military frequency. A voice claiming to be a Navy SEAL. A woman's voice, which is still unusual enough in special operations to cause double takes. Viper, stand by for authentication. Of course they want authentication. She is a stranger claiming to be a SEAL on a civilian aircraft in distress. They need to verify she is who she says she is before they can help. Ready to authenticate, Alexis responds, her mind racing through the authentication code she memorized years ago, praying they have not changed. At United States Naval Air Station Keflavik, Iceland, the duty officer is drinking coffee and watching radar screens showing routine commercial traffic over the North Atlantic. Then his radio crackles. This is Viper. Ex-Navy SEAL, taking command of civilian aircraft. He freezes with the coffee cup halfway to his lips. Did she just say Viper? He asks nobody in particular. He runs the voice through analysis software, comparing it against military voice databases. 98% match for Commander Alexis Cross, United States Navy SEALs, dishonorably discharged 3 years ago. He grabs his phone and calls his commanding officer at home. Sir, we just picked up an emergency transmission from a civilian 777 over the Atlantic. The person flying identified herself as the Viper. Sir, that's impossible, the commander interrupts, suddenly very awake. Viper was dishonorably discharged 3 years ago. That call sign was retired. It doesn't exist anymore. Sir, voice analysis confirms 98% match for Commander Alexis Cross. And she says both pilots are down, she has control of the aircraft, and she needs help. Long silence on the phone. Then the commander's voice, sharp and focused. Get me everything. Flight path, passenger manifest, complete situation report. And scramble F-18s from the Eisenhower carrier group. I want visual confirmation on that aircraft in 20 minutes. If Alexis Cross is really flying that plane, we are going to make damn sure she lands it safely. Within 6 minutes, 2 F-18 Super Hornet fighter jets launch from the USS Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group, which is conducting exercises 400 miles south of Iceland. The lead pilot is Lieutenant Commander Jack "Dagger" Morrison. His wingman is Lieutenant Sarah "Bolt" Chin. They go to afterburner immediately, climbing through 40,000 feet, racing north at supersonic speed. 18 minutes after launch, Dagger spots the 777 on his radar. Contact. Civilian 777, bearing 340, altitude 33,000 and descending slowly. Moving to visual. He throttles back and pulls alongside the massive Boeing, matching its speed. Through his canopy, through the 777's cockpit window, he sees something he will remember for the rest of his life. A woman with burned hands wrapped in makeshift bandages, her face streaked with smoke and soot, her dark blonde ponytail singed at the ends, sitting in the captain's seat with absolute focus, manually flying a Boeing 777 with no functioning instruments and no autopilot. Dagger keys his radio on the emergency frequency. Viper, this is Dagger, United States Navy. We have visual confirmation. Please confirm your status. Alexis's voice comes through the backup frequency. It is calm, professional, exactly the way Dagger has heard it described in the stories older SEALs tell about the legendary female operator. Dagger, Viper confirms. Cockpit fire, lithium-based, now suppressed. Captain killed in action. First officer critical with severe burns, evacuated from cockpit. I have manual control. Primary radio destroyed by fire. GPS offline. Navigating by dead reckoning. 289 souls on board including crew. Current fuel state approximately 4 hours. Request nearest suitable airport for emergency landing. In his cockpit, Dagger's wingman whispers over their internal channel, "Holy shit. She's actually doing it. She's hand-flying a 777 like it's a training aircraft." Dagger responds to Alexis. Viper, nearest suitable airport is Keflavik, Iceland, approximately 200 miles north-northeast of your current position. We will provide escort and relay communications. But Viper, command wants confirmation. Are you really Commander Alexis Cross? The one they discharged 3 years ago? Alexis's answer is ice cold. Affirmative, Dagger. I am the Navy SEAL they called unstable and unfit for service. The one they said was making paranoid accusations. The one they erased from history and pretended never existed. And right now, I am the only thing standing between 289 people and the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. So maybe command should worry less about my discharge status and more about clearing me a direct approach to Keflavik. Despite the tension, despite the emergency, Dagger grins inside his helmet. Copy that, Viper. You are cleared direct to Keflavik. We have your back. Welcome back to the fight. While Alexis flies, fighting to keep the damaged aircraft level and on course, a flight attendant named Maria approaches the cockpit cautiously. She is a veteran crew member, 20 years with United, and she has seen her share of emergencies. But she has never seen anything like this. "Ma'am," she says quietly from the cockpit doorway, "there is a passenger who needs to speak with you. He says it is urgent. He says it is about the fire." Alexis does not take her eyes off the instruments. "Unless he is a qualified pilot, I do not have time. He says the fire was not an accident. He says someone tried to kill him." Now Alexis looks up. "Send him forward." The passenger is a man in his 50s, pale and shaking. He is wearing an expensive suit that is now rumpled and stained with sweat. His name is Dr. Robert Henshaw, and he looks like he has been carrying the weight of the world. "I am on this flight because I am carrying evidence," he says rapidly, words tumbling out. "Evidence of massive fraud in military defense contracts. Falsified maintenance logs. Ignored safety protocols. Equipment failures that were covered up to save money and meet delivery deadlines. The same kind of corruption that killed a Navy SEAL named Sarah Mitchell 3 years ago." Alexis's hands tighten on the yoke. Her knuckles go white. "You knew Sarah?" "I did not know her personally," Henshaw says. "But I know the helicopter that killed her was manufactured and maintained by North Star Defense Systems, the same company I am about to testify against in federal court. They have been bribing safety inspectors, falsifying maintenance records, getting people killed for profit. And someone on this aircraft sabotaged that lithium battery to kill me before I can testify." Alexis processes this information with the speed of her SEAL training. "You are telling me that North Star Defense tried to bring down an entire commercial aircraft, tried to murder 289 people, just to silence you?" "I am saying they have killed before to protect billion-dollar contracts," Henshaw says. "They killed your friend Sarah Mitchell by putting defective equipment on that helicopter. They killed 12 soldiers in Iraq when a transport failed because they used substandard parts. They will kill again and again as long as nobody stops them." Alexis makes a decision. "Then we are going to make sure you survive to testify. And when we land, you are going to tell everyone exactly what North Star Defense did. Including what they did to Sarah Mitchell. Including what they did to my career when I tried to expose them." She keys the backup radio. Dagger, Viper. Be advised, we may have criminal activity aboard this flight. Fire was likely sabotage targeting a passenger who is carrying evidence of defense contractor fraud. Recommend FBI and federal investigators meet aircraft on landing. Copy, Viper. Relaying to command. For the next 90 minutes, Alexis Cross does something the Navy said she did not deserve to do. She flies a crippled Boeing 777 across the North Atlantic Ocean using nothing but the skills they tried to take away from her. With no GPS, she navigates by comparing her heading to the positions of Dagger and Bolt's F-18s, using them as reference points. She also uses celestial navigation, looking through the cockpit windows at the stars, using techniques she learned in SEAL survival training for operating behind enemy lines when all technology fails. With no primary radio, she coordinates her approach through Dagger's relay to Icelandic air traffic control. And she manages 289 terrified passengers through the flight attendant relay system. Tell them the fire is completely out, she instructs Maria. Tell them we are flying to Iceland with full military escort. Tell them our estimated time of arrival is 90 minutes. Tell them I am trained for this situation and we are going to make it safely. She does not tell them she has not flown anything larger than a small Cessna in 3 years. She does not tell them her hands are burned so badly she can barely feel the controls. She does not tell them she is flying on muscle memory, on instinct, on sheer determination not to let Sarah's death be for nothing. The flight is the longest 90 minutes of her life. Every minute, she checks fuel levels. Every minute, she adjusts trim to keep the nose level. Every minute, she fights the aircraft's tendency to drift because the autopilot is completely offline and she is doing everything manually. Her hands scream with pain. The burns are severe, second degree at least. Every movement of the controls sends fire up her arms. But she does not let go. She cannot let go. At 10,000 feet, descending toward Iceland, Alexis faces a new crisis. Viper, this is Bolt, comes the voice of Dagger's wingman. I'm showing asymmetric thrust on your number 2 engine. You're losing power on the right side. Alexis checks her instruments. Bolt is right. Engine number 2, on the right wing, is showing reduced power output. The fire must have damaged more than just the cockpit systems. Heat or smoke probably affected engine controls. With asymmetric thrust, the aircraft wants to yaw to the right. Alexis has to constantly apply left rudder to keep the nose straight. It is exhausting work, especially with burned hands that scream in protest with every movement. Copy, Bolt. I feel it. Can you give me visual on the engine? Any fire or smoke? There is a pause while Bolt maneuvers her F-18 closer to examine the right wing. Negative on fire or smoke, Viper. But I can see some heat distortion around the cowling. That engine is running hot. Recommend you shut it down before it fails completely. Alexis makes the calculation. Shutting down an engine means less power, which means a steeper descent angle and less margin for error on landing. But an engine that fails catastrophically at low altitude could cause loss of control. Roger, Bolt. Shutting down engine 2. She goes through the engine shutdown procedure from memory, pulling the fuel cutoff lever and watching the gauges as engine 2 spools down and stops. Now she is flying on 3 engines instead of 4. The 777 can fly on 2 if needed, but every engine loss makes things more difficult. At 10,000 feet, descending toward Iceland, Dagger radios. Viper, Keflavik in sight. Current winds are 270 at 15 knots. Runway 28 is cleared and standing by. All emergency equipment is in position. You are cleared to land. Be advised, weather is deteriorating. Light snow beginning. Visibility still good but expected to decrease. Snow. Of course there is snow. Because this emergency was not challenging enough already. Alexis lines up the approach. She is hand-flying, no autopilot, no GPS guidance, no instrument landing system. Just her eyes, her instincts, and 12 years of training they tried to erase. Alexis lines up the approach. She is hand-flying, no autopilot, no GPS guidance, no instrument landing system. Just her eyes, her instincts, and 12 years of training they tried to erase. And now she is doing it with only 3 engines and deteriorating weather. The runway appears ahead, a strip of lights in the darkness, partially obscured by swirling snow. At 500 feet, her voice is steady despite the pain in her hands. Landing gear down. Flaps to full. Airspeed 140 knots. On glide path. Behind her in the cabin, passengers grip their armrests. Some are praying. Some are crying. Flight attendant Maria stands at the front of the cabin, braced against the bulkhead, watching this unknown woman try to save all their lives. At 400 feet, the aircraft encounters wind shear from the storm. It drops suddenly, losing 50 feet of altitude in 2 seconds. Passengers scream. Alexis does not hesitate. She pushes the throttles forward on the 3 remaining engines, adding power, climbing back to the glide path. Her burned hands leave bloodstains on the throttle levers, but she does not care. 300 feet. 200. Come on, she whispers to the aircraft. Stay with me. We are almost there. The runway lights grow brighter. She can see fire trucks and ambulances lined up along the taxiway, red and blue lights flashing in the snow. At 100 feet, she pulls back slightly on the yoke. Flare. Hold attitude. Hold. The aircraft seems to hang in the air for an eternal moment. Then the main landing gear touches the runway with a firm thump. Not graceful, but controlled. The nose gear comes down. Thrust reversers deploy automatically on the 3 working engines. The aircraft decelerates, slowing, finally rolling to a stop. For a moment, there is complete silence in the cabin. Then 289 passengers erupt in applause, cheers, and tears of relief. Alexis sits in the captain's seat, hands shaking now that the adrenaline is fading, and she whispers words meant for only one person. That one was for you, Sarah. I did not let them win. Within hours, the world knows what happened. Disgraced Navy SEAL saves 289 lives after cockpit fire. Woman erased from military history prevents Atlantic disaster. Ex-SEAL Viper lands burning aircraft, Navy called her unfit. But the story also reveals Dr. Henshaw's evidence. FBI agents who meet the aircraft immediately take him into protective custody. Within 24 hours, they execute search warrants on North Star Defense Headquarters. Within 48 hours, they have enough evidence to indict 17 executives and engineers for fraud, bribery, and criminally negligent homicide. The evidence shows that North Star Defense falsified safety inspections on 47 different military programs over the past decade. They used substandard parts to increase profit margins. They bribed military inspectors to overlook problems. And they actively covered up equipment failures that led to deaths, including Sarah Mitchell's. The investigation also reveals something even more disturbing. The FBI discovers that the lithium battery that exploded in Flight 927's cockpit was not a random equipment failure. It was modified. Someone had tampered with the battery's safety circuits and overcharged it before the flight, turning it into a timed incendiary device. Security footage from JFK Airport shows a maintenance worker accessing the cockpit emergency equipment bag 2 hours before departure. The worker is wearing a North Star Defense contractor badge. His name is Michael Torres, and he disappeared the day after Flight 927 landed in Iceland. FBI agents find Torres 3 weeks later in a remote cabin in Montana. He refuses to talk at first, but when shown evidence that North Star Defense executives are already cooperating with prosecutors to save themselves, he breaks. They paid me $50,000, Torres confesses in his interrogation. They said Henshaw was a traitor trying to destroy American defense companies with lies. They said stopping him was patriotic. They never told me there would be 300 people on that plane. They said it would just look like an equipment malfunction and Henshaw would die in the crash. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know so many people would. His confession is recorded, documented, and becomes a key piece of evidence in the federal prosecution. The Navy is forced to reopen Sarah's case. The new investigation confirms what Alexis reported 3 years ago. The helicopter that killed Sarah had stress fractures in critical components. Maintenance logs were falsified. The aircraft should have been grounded. Sarah Mitchell did not die because of operator error. She died because a contractor cut corners to save money. At the press conference in Keflavik, Alexis sits beside Dr. Henshaw and Icelandic aviation officials. Her hands are wrapped in medical bandages. She is wearing borrowed clothes because her own are smoke-damaged and bloody. She looks exhausted. A reporter asks, "Commander Cross, the Navy discharged you dishonorably 3 years ago. They said you were unfit for service, that you were unstable and making paranoid accusations. How do you respond to that now?" Alexis's answer is ice-cold and absolutely clear. The Navy did not discharge me because I was unfit. They discharged me because I told the truth about a defense contractor who cut corners and killed my best friend. That contractor, North Star Defense, has now been exposed by Dr. Henshaw's evidence as responsible for multiple deaths across dozens of military programs. Today, that same contractor tried to murder Dr. Henshaw by sabotaging a battery in the cockpit of a commercial aircraft. They were willing to kill 289 innocent people to protect their profits. I saved those 289 lives using the exact training the Navy said I did not deserve to have. I flew that aircraft using skills the Navy tried to erase from history. I did it because Navy SEALs do not abandon people in danger, even when the Navy abandons us. So my response is this. I am not the one who should be ashamed. The Navy is. The room erupts with shouting reporters and flashing cameras. Within 72 hours of Alexis's press conference, the fallout is massive. North Star defense executives are arrested by FBI agents. Their offices are raided. Their computers are seized. The evidence confirms falsified maintenance logs in 47 military programs spanning a decade. Sarah Mitchell's death is officially reclassified from operator error to equipment failure due to contractor negligence and fraud. 3 Navy admirals who buried Alexis's original report, who pressured her to stay silent, who orchestrated her dishonorable discharge, are forced to resign. 2 face potential criminal charges for obstruction of justice. The Secretary of the Navy, under enormous public pressure and facing congressional hearings, makes an unprecedented public statement from the Pentagon briefing room. Commander Alexis Cross was dishonorably discharged for telling the truth. We failed her. We failed Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell. We failed every service member who trusted us to hold contractors accountable for their safety. Today, I am issuing a full presidential pardon and immediate reinstatement of Commander Cross to active duty with back pay and full restoration of honors. Her dishonorable discharge is completely expunged from her record. Her medals are restored. And her call sign, Viper, is reinstated as a permanent symbol of what we should aspire to be, warriors who never compromise truth for convenience or politics. Commander Cross, on behalf of the United States Navy, I apologize. We were wrong. You were right. And we are better because you had the courage to stand up when we did not. 6 months later, on a cold morning in November, Alexis stands at Arlington National Cemetery. She is in civilian clothes, jeans and a leather jacket, standing in front of a white marble headstone that has been updated with new words. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, United States Navy SEAL. Killed by contractor negligence. Hero who died serving her country. Her sacrifice exposed corruption and saved countless lives. Alexis places her SEAL trident on the headstone, the gold insignia gleaming in the weak sunlight. You were right, Sarah, she says quietly. The truth always comes out eventually. It just took 3 years and a burning airplane to make them listen. A voice speaks behind her. Commander Cross. She turns. It is the Secretary of the Navy himself, standing respectfully several feet back, flanked by 2 aides. "We would like you to return to active duty," he says. "Not as an operator. You have served enough in that capacity. We want you to lead a new oversight program ensuring contractor accountability across all military programs. Make sure nobody else dies the way Lieutenant Mitchell did. Make sure the truth is never buried again." Alexis considers this for a long moment, looking at Sarah's grave. Then she turns back to the secretary. "I will consult for your new program. I will testify at congressional hearings. I will make sure North Star Defense and every other corrupt contractor faces justice. But I will not wear the uniform again." The secretary looks surprised. "Why not?" "We are offering full reinstatement, full honors." "Because I learned something the Navy needs to understand," Alexis interrupts. "You do not need a uniform to be a warrior. You do not need a trident pin to save lives. You just need to be someone who refuses to let corruption and lies win, even when standing up costs you everything. I fought for 12 years wearing your uniform. Then I fought for 3 years without it. And I learned that the uniform does not make the warrior. The warrior makes the uniform mean something. So I will fight alongside you. I will help fix the system. But I will do it as a civilian, as someone who proves that truth and courage do not belong to any institution. They belong to anyone brave enough to stand up." She walks away from the secretary, pausing at Sarah's grave one final time. "Call sign Viper does not belong to the Navy anymore," she says. "It belongs to anyone who fights for truth when everyone else stays silent. Rest easy, Sarah. They finally know what you died for. And they will never forget again." As she walks through the rows of white headstones toward the cemetery gates, her phone buzzes. It is an email from Dr. Henshaw. "Alexis, the trial starts next month. 17 defendants. Federal charges. They are offering plea deals but I am refusing. I want a full trial. I want everything exposed in open court. Will you testify? The jury needs to hear from someone who actually paid the price for their corruption. Also, there is something else. During the FBI investigation, they found evidence that there were 3 other whistleblowers over the past decade who tried to expose North Star. All 3 died in accidents. Car crashes. Unexplained falls. One in a house fire. I think we are dealing with something bigger than contractor fraud. I think there are people who will kill to protect this system. I need someone I can trust. Someone who knows how to fight. Are you in?" Alexis reads the email twice. Then she types her response. "I'm in. Call sign Viper. Standing by." She hits send and keeps walking. Because warriors do not retire. They just find new battles. And this battle, the fight against the corruption that killed her best friend, is far from over. United Airlines Flight 927 is now known in aviation history as the Viper flight. The aircraft itself, after repairs, continues to fly commercial routes. But Seat 14A is permanently marked with a small plaque, reserved in honor of Commander Alexis Viper Cross, who saved 289 lives. Dr. Robert Henshaw's testimony, combined with FBI evidence and Alexis's own testimony about Sarah Mitchell's death, leads to the conviction of all 17 North Star defense executives. The CEO receives 35 years in federal prison. The company declares bankruptcy and is dissolved. But the investigation also exposes a network of corruption involving other contractors, military procurement officers, and even members of Congress. 23 more people are eventually indicted. 5 members of Congress resign. The Department of Defense creates entirely new oversight mechanisms. Alexis becomes a national figure. She is offered book deals, movie rights, speaking tours. She turns them all down except one. She agrees to teach a class at the Naval Academy about ethical leadership and the courage to speak truth to power. She also creates the Sarah Mitchell Foundation, which provides legal support and protection for military whistleblowers who expose safety violations and contractor fraud. The Navy wants to name a ship after her. She refuses. "Name it after Sarah," she says. "She is the one who died for the truth." 2 months later, the Navy announces that a new Arleigh Burke-class destroyer will be named USS Sarah Mitchell. At the naming ceremony, Alexis is invited to speak. She stands at the podium in civilian clothes, looking out at admirals and politicians and Sarah's family. "Sarah Mitchell was my best friend," she says. "She was also one of the finest Navy SEALs I ever had the honor to serve with. She died because people in positions of power chose money over lives. She died because the system failed to protect the warriors it sent into harm's way. This ship carries her name not as an apology, but as a promise. A promise that we will never again let corruption hide behind classified files and corporate contracts. A promise that we will protect our warriors the way they protect us." Sarah would have been embarrassed by all this attention. She would have said she was just doing her job. But that is exactly why she deserves to be remembered. Because she believed serving meant doing what was right, even when it was hard. I hope every sailor who serves on this ship remembers that. I hope they remember Sarah Mitchell, and I hope they have the courage to speak truth to power the way she did. The audience stands and applauds. Sarah's mother, tears streaming down her face, embraces Alexis afterward. "Thank you," she whispers. "Thank you for never letting them forget her." On the first anniversary of Flight 927, Alexis receives a letter. It is from the teenage boy who was sitting in seat 14C, the one with the noise-canceling headphones who never noticed her before the fire. "Dear Commander Cross," it reads. "I am writing to thank you for saving my life. I was on that plane because I was running away. My parents and I had a huge fight and I was going to London to stay with my uncle and I was planning never to come back. When the fire happened and the pilots were gone and everyone was screaming, I thought I was going to die. I thought it was my punishment for being a coward and running away from my problems. But then I saw you. I saw you walk through the smoke like it was nothing. I saw you fight that fire with your bare hands. I saw you fly that plane when nobody else could. You did not run away. You did not give up. You fought for all of us even though nobody knew who you were or what you had lost. I went back home. I talked to my parents. I am fixing things instead of running. You taught me that being brave is not about never being afraid. It is about doing what is right even when you are terrified, even when it costs you everything. Thank you for saving my life. And thank you for teaching me how to live it. Marcus Chin, age 17, passenger seat 14C. Alexis keeps that letter in her desk drawer. On hard days, when the fight against corruption seems impossible, when powerful people push back against her work, when she wonders if any of it matters, she reads it again. Because she knows now that the battles worth fighting are never easy. The truths worth telling always come with a price. And the people worth saving are sometimes the ones who do not even know they needed saving. Her phone rings. It is Dr. Henshaw. "Alexis, you need to see this. The congressional hearing just released their final report. It is bigger than we thought. North Star was not alone. They found 5 other defense contractors engaged in similar fraud. Billions of dollars. Dozens of deaths that were covered up. Send me the report," Alexis says. There is more. Congress is creating a new independent oversight committee for military contractors. They want you to chair it. Full authority to investigate, subpoena power, direct reporting to Congress. You would have the power to do what the Navy would not let you do 3 years ago. Alexis looks at the photograph on her desk. It is a picture of her and Sarah in their SEAL gear, taken in Afghanistan, both of them exhausted and dusty and grinning at the camera after a successful mission. "I will do it," she says. "But only if we name the committee after Sarah." The Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell Defense Accountability Committee. So every contractor who thinks about cutting corners sees her name and remembers that people died because of fraud. Consider it done, Henshaw says. 3 years ago, the Navy took everything from her. Her uniform. Her medals. Her identity. But they could not take what mattered most, her integrity. Her courage. Her refusal to let lies win. Call sign Viper died in disgrace 3 years ago. But it was reborn at 34,000 feet over the Atlantic, in fire and smoke and blood, when a woman the world had forgotten proved that warriors are not defined by institutions or uniforms or official recognition. Warriors are defined by the battles they choose to fight and the people they choose to protect. And Alexis Cross will keep fighting, keep protecting, keep standing for truth, until the day she dies. Because once a SEAL, always a SEAL. Even if the Navy forgets. Even if the world looks away. Even if it costs everything. The call sign lives. Viper never dies. She looks one more time at Sarah's photograph, then picks up her laptop and opens the congressional report. There is work to do. There are always more battles to fight. And she is just getting started. 6 months after accepting the chairmanship of the Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell Defense Accountability Committee, Alexis sits in a congressional hearing room. In front of her are 3 North Star defense executives who thought they would never face consequences. Their lawyers sit beside them, expensive suits and carefully prepared statements. Mr. Reynolds, Alexis says, addressing the former CEO, you signed off on 47 different falsified inspection reports. You personally profited millions of dollars while service members died using equipment you knew was defective. I want you to look at this photograph. She holds up an image of Sarah Mitchell in her SEAL uniform, smiling at the camera. This is Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell. She was my best friend. She died because you chose profit over safety. Look at her face, Mr. Reynolds. Look at the woman you killed. Reynolds looks away. His lawyer objects. The committee chairman overrules. You will look at her, Alexis says, her voice cold as ice. Because every decision you make from now on, every day you spend in prison, I want you to remember her face. I want you to remember that your greed has a name. Sarah Mitchell. Say her name. Reynolds remains silent. Say her name. Sarah Mitchell, he finally whispers. Louder. So everyone can hear you. Sarah Mitchell. Alexis nods. The committee has 12 more photographs of service members who died because of your company's fraud. We are going to make you look at every single one. And we are going to make you say every single name. Because that is the accountability you tried to avoid. That is the truth that survives every attempt to bury it. As she speaks, she feels a calm certainty settle over her. This is her mission now. Not the mission she ran as a SEAL, but something equally important. Making sure the truth is heard. Making sure the fallen are remembered. Making sure corruption has consequences. The call sign lives. Viper never dies.